Another day, another dollar or another pound or euro, wherever you are watching this from. Yeah, talking points number 127. We will be talking Spurs, the 2023-24 season. Improvement or same old? It's always got to be a bit controversial. You know what Sam Spurs is like. You know what the people are like on Paxton Road. We've all got opinions. And you know what opinions are like. So, let's go. Hello and welcome to Paxton Road TV, PRTv Spurs. I am Sam Spurs for Life, and this is Talking Points podcast number 127. As I've already mentioned, I'll put the title up again. Spurs, the 23-24 season. Improvement or same old? It's never dull in the life of Spurs fans. We're always talking, we're always saying something. We're never satisfied. We've got much to be satisfied for. Well, that's what we're going to get into, discuss today. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you do all that, share about. We're going to be chatting. In the house, joining me to do some more of this talking, my friend, Mr. Tifosi. Sean Hurl, welcome to the stream. How you doing, sir? Just doing some housekeeping in the background. You all right?
I'm fine. You're looking more like a Tifosi today with your hat on, mate. I can see you with a megaphone, not facing the pitch, but actually directing the choreography and all the pyro going off around you.
I've still got the hangover from the holiday, and I think that's where it's come. I wore this hat quite a bit on holiday, and I quite liked it. So I thought I'd continue. As you can see,
I bought a similar hat at the Women's Cup final, so it will probably come out next season.
Oh, wicked! Go and check out my mate as well, Moneybags Clothing. Peter Bannon on Instagram, check him out. Moneybags Clothing. I'm just repping as we do. The rest of it is all immaterial material. Mr. Hull.
Yes.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. I've enjoyed a little bit of Schadenfreude at Chelsea's expense at the weekend. I'm liking the fact that there's a bit of a managerial merry-go-round, some of which I just cannot understand.
Yeah.
And things are, things are just merrying along. The transfer window opens, I think, on the 14th of June, but a couple of things have appeared today in the press. Mm-hmm. Time will tell. I'm enjoying the downtime from watching Tottenham. I never enjoy reading about it, but as I always tell myself, until it's on TottenhamHotspur.com, it's not happening. Yeah,
there's going to be a whole host, I would imagine, of rumours going around. Some I hope are more true than others. Some I don't really want to hear too much about, but that's what we've got to go through. This gossip, it sells. It's all about, getting us to click whatever it needs to be done. And I'm hoping that you'll do the same. Make sure you click on that subscribe button. Like, share. What else do you say? Comment as well, Sean. You know how to do. You do it better than me. What's the people got to do?
Well, obviously, the first thing we want them is to like, because it helps us with the algorithm. Then we like them to comment, because that again helps us with the algorithm. We like them to subscribe to the channel. Although there's obviously changes afoot this summer, and obviously we like if you've got Spurs fans who want to hear reasonable chat about Tottenham Hotspur without getting in too much into the weeds, share it with your friends as well. It's not that difficult. Just press a couple of buttons and send it to their email inboxes or whatever it is, or their WhatsApp numbers, and help spread the word.
There you go. You heard it first. It's all balanced here. Yeah, we sometimes have some strong debates. Yeah, we sometimes have differences of opinions, but that's what it's all about. But it's not, I wouldn't say, what's the word? There's no agendas. And there's quite a few channels that you might have found that there's some agendas on there. But each to their own. We try and be balanced. but opinions are opinions, as I've said before. So let's get into this. Me and you, let's talk about the season that's gone. I kind of think the season for me went in probably three sections. Obviously, that first 10-game section we had. Then we had the bit up until, after the Chelsea game, I guess was that point. We had AFCON, we had the Asia Cup. And then it was kind of like we had another set of players come back and we thought, it was back on again. And it wasn't so good. And then I guess the last part of the season where, we was kind of in the race for fourth, didn't materialise, weren't quite ready for it. To be honest with you, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I didn't know. I'm going to rephrase this. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't have wanted to be in the Champions League. But for me, I'm now at that stage where if you're going to be in a competition, you have to seriously try and win it. Now, we have been in the Champions League final 2019, but do I think next season, the current play that we're going to be challenging for that Champions League? Possibly not. Do I think we should be challenging for the Europa League? 100% yes. Because of the new changes, there's no drop downs from the Champions League. I think there's a potential opportunity for us to go for it and win a trophy, but there's others that potentially could be easy, and that's what we'll get into. But again, that's looking forward. Let's do a little bit of looking back. Let's talk about the season that we had. How do you think it went overall before we kind of break down and look at some of the games? And I'll also put up some of the comments that people are commenting on. Sean, take it away. What's your thoughts on the season overall? Then again, look at the first 10 games where we were looking like title contenders.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, so much has happened this season, both on and off the field, that it's very difficult to remember, to get a perspective sometimes. But if you think about exactly a year ago today, the season had ended. It had been a rancorous end to the season from the moment Conte finally burned his bridges at Southampton, and we'd limped to the end of the season. We'd finished outside of Europe for the first time since 2004, maybe something like that. I don't know. And we were in a mess. The fans were disgruntled at the board. The board seemed completely clueless as to what to do. It was a mess. And then there's all the the rumours about the coaches we were going to get. Nagelsmann, is it going to be Slot? Is it going to and it just it just made things worse and worse and worse. And then finally they decide on this guy who I've been watching for the last couple of years up here in Scotland. And you'd think that they'd appointed George Graham or something, and it was madness, And I found myself having to back the guy because I'd seen what he'd done. He'd taken over Celtic, who everyone says it's either them or Rangers. With Celtic were in a mess, an absolute mess, and it took a while for it to come good. And he did a great job. He won 5 out of the 6 trophies that he was expected to in his 2 years. And obviously he's an ambitious guy. He wanted to get to the Premier League, and we offered him that chance. And I think back to that early interview that Maddison gave, and he said, when he told me, he said, whether you come or you don't come, you're going to see a different Tottenham. We're going to be a different, we're going to be a different prospect. And then he said, well, I like that. I like that, guys who back themselves, who have an idea. And I think, I think those of us who had no doubt about Postecoglou have been bought. I think generally, particularly in those first 10 weeks, our faith was justified. Now, to say that it's got it's been a totally successful season, would be to deny exactly what you outlined, Sam, which was that it was 3 parts. It was the period up to Chelsea, and I remember you and I looking at each other aghast at that Chelsea match. What the F is going on here? But I keep saying to those doubters, I say, well, even in that game, down to 9 men, we were a boar's hair, as they say up here, a boar's hair away from getting a draw with 9 men. I mean, if Dyer's disallowed goal had stood, or Sonny's chance, or Bentancur's
chance.
Yeah,
Bentancur's chance. That's the one as well.
Yeah, you know, it would have been 2-2, and I think Chelsea wouldn't have come back as they did. And remember, they scored the last 2 goals in injury time at the end of the game. So, I mean, that was obviously the turning point in the season. Maddison was out for ages. We lost Van der Ven for a long time, and obviously Romero and Udogi had got red cards. So it's all a bit, it was a sad way for the opening period to end, and we never kind of really fully recovered, although we did pick up points in the period sort of just up to the new year. But it was. I mean, I think it's been progress, and how do you measure progress? Well, the first thing is they say the table never lies. So last year we finished 8th, this year we finished 5th, so that's an advance. Last year we finished with 60 points, this year we got 66, that's 6 more points. We scored more goals, having lost, and here's the thing I haven't even mentioned, having lost Harry Kane the day before the season kicked off. And we've actually, although it's not brilliant, we actually conceded less goals. So there's progress, even Andrew at the end admits it wasn't perfect, but he says, he knows what he wants to do, and provided this is always the big if he's backed, then hopefully we'll have an even better season, and I'll be looking to go further. So if it's 5th, I want 4th, 3rd, 2nd, whatever. I want a trophy or a good run at a trophy. I'm jealous as hell as watching United in one of their worst Premier League seasons ever, winning the FA Cup there on Saturday.
And that's where I'm at. I watched that game because I was like probably most of the Man United fans, and I'll just touch on that briefly before I touch on this little comment here from David Clark. I saw my face change partway through. Werner, we signed on loan. I didn't know that. I've been out all day. I've had a run. I had a flat tire and I got run flat, so I had to go and sort all that out. I haven't been really looking at news. Is that today? Was that today, Sean?
Yeah, that's happened today.
Oh, good grief. Anyway, we'll come back to that. Where was I getting to? The point I was making. What was I talking about? Oh, I've forgotten already.
Manchester United in the cup.
That's right. That's terrible. Yeah, Man United. So I think everybody, to a man, woman, child, whatever you are, I don't think many people gave Man United a chance. Obviously, they're going to think players-wise, manager-wise, they're always in. It's a cup game. It's a one-off game. But realistically, I think Manchester City will probably look at history. But then going back, and hindsight's great, wonderful thing, as they say. I heard that the City players were out celebrating up until a couple of days before the final. The final was on the Saturday. Yeah, some players were probably out on the lash till the Thursday. De Bruyne didn't play well, etc., etc. So it didn't look like they were really prepared, shall we say. Still, you would have thought that an unprepared Manchester City against a Manchester United team that's just been so terrible, up and down, players here, there, and everywhere. But what I did have to respect about Ten Hag this season, and whether you agree or not, is he was just belligerent. He was just, no, I don't care what anybody says. I'm gonna tell lies. I'm gonna expand the truth. I'm gonna say everything about these players. And I think some of these players have almost bought into that. Some of the younger players, which you can see that clearly he's got some younger players in there. So Manchester United winning the FA Cup against a team that were on for 4 trophies this season. Let's not forget it. They were on for 4 trophies this season, Manchester City. Obviously with the Carabao Cup, not so much. But everything else, they were pretty much there. The treble could have been done again. But that now has made me think, for next season, should we prioritize a trophy? The easiest one to win, I think, given a bit of luck and all the rest of it, is the Carabao Cup. Now, people say, oh, the Carabao Cup is this, that. None of our managers in recent times have prioritized that as a trophy to win. And I can't understand why. I can't, because it would breed that mentality that we severely lack to get over the line. Success, improvement, and better are three different things. You know, successful is, as someone said to me, we had an on WhatsApp, it's objective. You can measure that. If success is a top 4 position, you can measure that. If success to you is a trophy, which it is to me, you can measure that. Whether or not we're better or worse than last season, I guess is subjective. But if you look at a points tally and you look at games won and you look at goals scored, yes, we are better than last season. I agree. But next season, given what I've seen is potentially going to be happening, manager changes all here and everywhere. Ten Hag's probably going to be gone from Man United. Pep's announced that he's no longer going to be at City after next season. Klopp's already gone. You would have thought that this is Arsenal's time. But again, they're going to be under pressure because he's now got to keep on performing. Maybe financial fair play is going to kick in for them. I've heard that we're in a great position. After all that spiel that I've just done, I want us to win something next season. It's not a guarantee. But what I don't want to see is us not take these trophies seriously, particularly the domestic ones. And that's all that I want us to do. Take them seriously, even if it means putting out a not even a weakened team, but a second string team in the league game as opposed to the cup game. Let's think about it in reverse, as opposed to, oh, we're going to be getting a top, because top 4 at the end of the day is money. I get that. But are we in a position to win the Champions League yet next season? No. So we've got to try and do something this season. Anyway, spiel over. Man United did that for me. The first 3 games of last season, or the season gone. First game was 2-2 against Brentford. Then we won 2-0 at home against Man United. And then we beat Bournemouth 2-0. Good start. That first game, Brentford, good start. Van der Ven made his debut. The league game against Man United, I think I remember that one as well, because, you know, Man United had a very good first half. I think you remember they could have probably been up a couple of goals. And then I think we went and took over. The Bournemouth game, I can't really remember. Was that Van der Ven who scored a goal in that game? Was it that game?
No, that was no. The Bournemouth one was where Maddison scored after he was set up by Sarr. I remember he kind of toe poked it past the keeper, and then the other goal was Decky from a kind of similar to the goal he scored against Sheffield United on the last day of the season, kind of on the edge of the 6-yard box.
That's right. So the first 3 games, 2 wins and a draw. 2 games away from home. That's a pretty decent start, would you not say? How did you think after those first 3 games, in terms of, again, you mentioned it, Harry Kane leaving on the first day of the season. We were trying to find our feet, getting players in. How do you think it went from that point of view in terms of how you felt the season was going to go? Because remember, our transfer window, who did we get? Solomon, Van der Ven. I guess you could say Udogie came in, but he was already bought. Who else came in over that period of time?
Well, obviously on the last day of the window, it was Brennan Johnson. But
Brennan Johnson. Firstly, before you answer the second part of that, so first part of that question, talk to me about this. Do you think we did enough good business in the window this season? And what do you think is going to be the case for next season? And then you can go back. Sorry, I'm just jumping all over the place, but it's a podcast anyway.
Well, I mean, I was quite happy with the acquisitions, because I knew that we were going to play a new style of football. I was hoping that, you know, some of the players would adapt. Some did, some didn't, and you know that's part of the learning curve that, you know, Ange's had in his 28 years as a coach. You know, he finds out about the squad, and we all learn, you know, who's good at that. I mean, it's very difficult. It's very difficult because in that period, a lot of players who we were raving about, and I'll talk about the number 8 in particular. We're tearing it up, but it was, you know, I mean, at that point, I was along for the ride. I didn't think it was, you know, I didn't think we were going to win the league, because teams are much further along in their development. You know, there's always City, and you know, Arsenal had acquired Rice and were, you know, possibly going to, you know, build on their previous season. So it was going to be difficult, but I was more than happy to go along. It was great to see all the bumping of gums of Arsenal and City fans, as we kind of, as Anne scooped 1, then 2, then 3 Manager of the Month awards, and they were really, it was great, and but that's part of football. It's banter, it's what have you. He seemed to be getting a tune out of players. Players have bought in. I thought he handled the transition to new leadership with Son, Romero, and Maddison was good. There seemed to be a camaraderie amongst and there was just no bad characters in the team. The ones that you'd had your doubts about were shipped off wherever they went to. And some players, obviously, he had a look at them in pre-season and he just didn't fancy them, and they moved on. So, but it was, a lot of them were removed from the squad altogether. They're still technically on our books, even as we talk today. But I thought, this is good. He's playing, and it was just the quality of the football, Sam. The quality of the football. I mean, it was like night and day from what we've been subjected to since November 2019. That sort of horrible grinding out transitional football, defensive football, whatever. It was night and day, and I was in with the ride, and it was easy to defend Ange then, and that made my life a lot easier as well. But it's a long season. You finish up where you deserve to finish up, and I would say that the top 4 teams this season are the 4 best teams in the Premier League. We were the 5th probably, and it gets us into a trophy which is having it's being rejigged. It's going to be a league system. There's going to be some good teams in it. Don't have it right. I mean, if you saw that final last week between Atalanta and Bayer Leverkusen, that was a quality game. 2 great teams, and one who had been unbeaten all season, and they were found out. They were found out, and they were dealt with, and that's how it is in European football. So yes, I want us to have a go at the Europa League, but don't think it's a shoo-in. Don't think it's a shoo-in. When you get to the quarterfinals,
the point you just made about Bayer Leverkusen being found out, in a way, that's my little bit of fear going into next season. If we don't get a little bit more pragmatism, which Ange did show in the last game of the season, or certainly against Man City, and there was some changes again, some subtle changes that people might not have noticed, which again is not distracting from anything about philosophy, but some adjustments in terms of the personnel and how they play and where they play. We're going to have some degree of that. And I think that's where he's going to learn from this season. I think if he looks back at the whole season, if I was Ange, I would look at that as being, okay, I can be, because he's very honest, when he gets asked questions in the press conference, this is something that's, it can be looked at in 2 ways. The press in this country, once they get their teeth, their nails into something, they can prize you open. And we saw in that, the mini meltdown, I guess, where Ange said what he said, inside and outside the club, blah 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 blah. That was the press looking and being able to try and prize it open. Since that point, I think he's kind of closed that. He's kind of almost made an apology, and I accept that. Everybody does these things. Everybody reacts to things. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, he shouldn't have said that. He's done this. At the time, I was like, oh my god. But then I thought about it. We all have these times. So I hope that's one of the lessons learned. But I'm just going to go back to the first game of the season. This was the starting lineup, Sean. So we had Vicario in goal, Romero, Van der Ven, and think about this. This will gotta give you a bit of shock. Sanchez came on in that game after 13 minutes for Romero. Sanchez, what's happened to him? He's gone off where he's gone. Anyway, sorry. Van der Ven, Udogi,
he's just won the Turkish league, Sam. He's just won the Turkish league. Along with Ndombele, who played about 3 minutes all season.
Sanchez has gone off. Sanchez has gone off and won a title.
And Aurier as well, and Aurier, and Vinicius.
Oh, my chest hurts. Right, going back to the team. Sorry. Van der Ven, Udogie, Bissouma, Skip, Maddison, Kulusevski, Richarlison, Son. The subs, Perisic, who came on after 75 minutes. Sarr came on after 75 minutes. The substitutes not used: Austin, Pedro Porro, Davis, Højbjerg, Lo Celso, Solomon. So looking at that team, who played right back that game? Who played
Emerson.
right back? Emerson. Did I mention
Emerson
his name?
played inverted fullback, and
did.
He scored.
Yeah, he did play in that game. He did. He started.
He scored our second goal.
Yeah, because I've got the picture up here of him celebrating. I forgot. That's how much of he's erased from my memory banks. Anyway, I'm being facetious here. So we had a good start to the season. Then I'm going to go to the third game, and just to see if there's any real changes in terms of the personnel for that game. But we won that 2-0 against Bournemouth, and the starting 11 then, Porro came into the team. Romero, Van der Ven, Udogie, Maddison, Bissouma, Sarr started that game. Kulusevski, Richarlison, and Son. Substitutes not used: Forster, Royal, Sanchez, Solomon. Subset did come on: Davis after 82 minutes, Skip after 73, Lo Celso after 73, Perisic after 59. I think he was a big miss this season. If I'm honest with you, Perisic was a major miss, because that would have given us a bit more balance on that left-hand side, regardless of if it was in a front position or in that defensive position. And we really lacked that. I think that experience, but also you have to admit, Perisic is more athletic than Ben Davies. I like Ben Davies. I've got no qualms against Ben Davies, but his race is run. Perisic, although he's 34, whatever he was, or whatever he is, certainly gave us more of an outlet, more of a goal threat, and I think we had a good balance with that team. But going back, those first 10 games, and I'm going to go and tell the people what we did, because it's important to know these first 10 games, what our results were. So 2-2, as I said, first game, 2-0 against Man United at home. We then won 2-0 against Bournemouth away. Then we had a game against Burnley away. We won 5-2 in that game. That was a good game. I think, Bournemouth put up a bit of a spirit, but we slapped them. And then we beat Sheffield United 2-1. Arsenal, the first game against Arsenal. Let's talk about that one. I think that game, for me, it really kind of, it gave me that sort of like, oh, here we go. Because, when you play Arsenal away the first game of any season, it's kind of like, oh, shit, you don't want, and particularly when we played them early in September, I was like, oh, shit, don't want to be playing them so soon. But we got a 2-2 draw, and we actually looked very good in that game, and I think they were surprised. So going to that game then, again, and I'll tell you the starting 11, and then you could have a bit of a chat. This was our starting 11 for that game. We had Vicario in goal, Pedro Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, Udogie. There's our back five in there. And I think that's what we've said. That's our strongest back five. Maddison, Bissouma, Sarr, Kulusevski, Son. What do you think of that team? And what do you think of the performance against Arsenal up to that point?
Yeah, if they were being honest, you'd say that we could have won that game. Richarlison had a very good opportunity late on to make it 3-2. I think we more than held our own. I thought Son was excellent, given that he was playing in the centre more and having to. But we rode our luck as well. There was that tackle on Maddison, which Jesus then blasted over the bar. It was, it was a tough game, but we held our own and we got a point at the Emirates, which I came out of there thinking that's great, that's brilliant, I'm right. I'm still on the crest of this wave. If I'm on the surfboard on Bondi, I'm still standing up, which don't even go there to be honest. But anyway, we were doing well. We'd held our own. We'd scored when when it was necessary. We'd scored the second goal literally as they'd scored their penalty. It was brilliant. I was loving it. And Bissouma was probably Bissouma's best performance of the season. And we thought, oh my God, this is the player we thought we'd got from Brighton. Now, whether that went to his head a bit. I don't know, but he was never quite as good as that game away at the Emirates.
Do you know what, Sean? And again, this is what I'm just trying to make head or tail about Basuma's form this season, because as I said, I've lauded that player up when we bought him, since we bought him, thinking that he was that piece as close to, I thought, Dembele as we were going to get. Moussa Dembele, that is. Hasn't quite panned out, but he was showing some real signs in that. Do you think that the AFCON for both him, Sarr, and then the Asia Cup had an effect for Son as well, in terms of them? Because Son had some really good form in the early parts of the season. You know, he was scoring goals for fun. He was, like I said, he was up there in the top half of the scoring charts, etc., etc. Basuma looked like a player that I said he's got to be one of the first names on the team sheet here. Sarr kind of came into his own a little bit later, but certainly I would have said, if you call it right, Basuma, Maddison, I would say that back five that consisted of Pedro Porro, Vicario, Romero, Van der Ven, and Udogie. We were like, yeah, they were kind of picking themselves, and there was a few places in there which you could say was up for grabs. Son was obviously going to be the main man there in terms of, giving us that effect for goals. Kulishevsky started the season pretty good on that right-hand side, as we've seen him. So there was only really one place up for grabs. I know Richarlison kind of started the season, but he didn't start the season well, but came into his own again. But again, I'm asked the question, do you think that played a big distraction for them players, particularly because they were our better players at the time? Sarr definitely was by the time AFCON came around. Basuma, I think, trailed off after that Chelsea game. And Son, I personally believe he knew he couldn't miss that Asia Cup regardless. If he'd have got injured for that, I think they could have probably, started a war against us, Korea, because I think he's that important to them that, they could have come to Tottenham and said, oh, what's going on here? But again, how do you think that affected those players in general?
I don't necessarily think it affected them prior to the tournaments. I would say the loss of Van der Ven and Udogie and Romero due to suspensions and Maddison had an impact on our team more than those three players. However, I think when they went to those tournaments, the fact that first thing we heard about Basuma was that he picked up malaria. Then he didn't get picked for the team, and it seems that he's fallen out with the coach, and the coach recently didn't pick him at all for the squad when Mali were playing recently. I don't know whether that was where. I know Sarr got injured the last game before he was going away to AFCON. Yeah,
he was in tears. I remember that game. Yeah. He was in tears. It looked like he was going to miss it.
Yeah, and he has been carrying a back injury, it seems, towards the back end of the season. Where he got that, I don't know. But I think though the effect on those, and Son, Korea were the favourites to win the tournament, and to not even get to the final. And now a lot of people are blaming that on the fact that it was Klinsmann, the absentee coach, was in charge and what have you. And they even fell out with each other. Leading players in the Son had a fight with the boy Lee Kang-in, who's at Paris Saint-Germain, and so there was a disharmony. And I have to say that I know how proud players are for playing for their country. I think. I'm not. As I said, I'm a club before country man myself. I prefer my league stuff, but I know how important it is. We know how important it is for the South American boys to play for their country. But I do think the after effects of those tournaments did affect those three players. And of course, when you're losing those three really important players, it means that other players are having to do a lot more. And and when people get serious injuries like Maddison, and don't forget, Maddison was the most fouled player in the beginning of the season. He was being kicked from pillar to post in every game, and it's I don't know whether he can have a word with Harry and talk about his ankles because, Harry seemed to have that issue, but latterly seems to have sorted that out. But, he was getting kicked from pillar to post. And, eventually your body, it can take a while to recover. Look at Benton Court, when he was champing at the bit to come back, but, Matty Cash seemed to stop to that in the Villa game, So,
yeah.
I mean, I tend to think the effects of the tournament, post the tournament, had affected them, particularly Son, because he was expected to win. And of course, he's now 30 plus, and he's not going to have. He's got to wait another 4 years for another tournament.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I think Son came back from that tournament disappointed, and I think that shows in
quite broken, actually.
Yeah,
quite
probably
broken,
even use those words. You could probably even use that word broken because you're right. He's presidential in South Korea. He can go. He can basically do what he likes. If he goes into politics when his football career is finished, I wouldn't be surprised because he could probably become whatever it is that they have in there, whether that's prime minister, president, I don't know. But he could probably run for something in office over there in terms of politics if he wants to do that. But I just want to talk about a couple of games before we kind of move on a bit further. The Liverpool game, which is game week 7. I think, was you at that game? I was definitely at that game.
I was at that game, yeah.
We can't lie. VAR did us a favour. The referees effed up. VAR effed up. Everybody effed up on that occasion to our benefit. Liverpool fans, even now, are probably still talking about that. I don't care.
Oh, God, they're still salty about it. But I'm still salty about Madrid 2019. So, put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Facts.
You know what I mean? I will go to my grave. I'm probably closer to it than I am to my cradle nowadays at 63. Saying that was not a handball. There was never a handball on Sissoko. So I mean, I got quite excited there recently when they said that they might scrap VAR. I was thinking, oh yeah, please, because I think, do you know what? I'd rather decisions on the field of play were down to the referees and the linesmen.
Do you know what? It's not even VAR per se that's the problem. It's the referees that then bottle it. If you've made a decision as a referee and VAR tells you, hold on a minute, I think you should look at this, unless it's, as they said, clear and obvious, stick to your decision because that's what you see in real time. Anything you see in slow motion, anything you see at various different angles is going to look differently. Referees before VAR never had the ability to be able to look at something in slow motion at a different angle, at a different pace. It wasn't possible. So you had to make a decision. And most of the time, it was right. Yes, there's always going to be controversy. There's always going to be situations where they got it wrong. But that's human nature. We need to have that aspect in it. What VAR was supposed to do was, I guess, the Henry handball against the Republic of Ireland. That sort of thing. That's what VAR should be there to do. Because that's clear and obvious. It's clear and obvious. Somebody missed that. Oh, hold on. And Henry's put it in with his hand. If we had VAR in the 1986 Cup final, Diego Maradona's goal wouldn't have stood. It just wouldn't have stood. Correct? Mm-hmm. But we can't take that back now because that was one of the most classic games we'll ever see in our lifetimes. And unfortunately, England were on the... I know you don't really... Are you Scottish? Do you call yourself Scottish? Are you going to call yourself Scottish, Sean?
No.
Right.
No, I mean, if my interest is piqued at all, it's usually the Republic of Ireland because that's my heritage.
I didn't want to go.
I don't really. I don't wish England harm. I don't wish Scotland any harm. But it does. Nothing would make my boat float more than Jodi lifting the FA Cup in May next year or something like that. You know what I mean?
Clear and obvious. Maradona's goal wouldn't have stood. And who was it? That goal against Manchester United, was it Mendes? That was about
Pedro Mendes, yeah.
It was 5 yards behind the line. 5 yards behind the line. And the keeper pulled it out, and that wasn't given. Those are the things that VAR, I'm happy for VAR to, because that's obvious.
Well, the Mendes thing would have been decided by goal line technology. It wouldn't have been VAR. It would have been goal line technology.
Goal line technology.
And no one is calling for the removal of goal line technology.
No.
I mean, there's been one. I think there's been one. I remember in the COVID time there was one major cock up at the game between Villa and.
Well, it actually didn't even go in the goal.
Wednesday, Sheffield United, I think.
Didn't go in the goal. It went at the side of the goal, and they gave it as a goal or something like that. Whatever. It was.
No. It was clearly over the line, but they didn't give it.
Did you see the one that
clearly over the line? Yeah.
There was one that didn't go in the goal. There was a goal line technology when it didn't actually go in. I'll have to look back. But that sort of thing. Again, this is what those things were brought in for. That again, but Andrew made a good point. We're not trying to re-ref a game, and that's really what VAR's been doing a lot more. Re-refing
and obviously the other thing is their mates. You know, no one when VAR was introduced, no one envisaged that it was referees checking on referees who have a professional and possibly social relationship. You know what I mean? It was madness. Anyway, madness.
Yeah. So following the Liverpool game, away to Luton Town, we won 1-0. Next game was against Fulham, we won that 2-0, and then we won away to Crystal Palace 2-1, and that was all up to October. And then the famous night, that night where I went down to that game, I was thinking, this is our best opportunity to give this lot, Chelsea, a good pasting. They weren't doing too well at the time. Obviously, there was a whole lot of stuff going on. It seemed like he was out of his depth. It was all kind of madness was going on at that team. And obviously, post that, we've seen that Poch can't take it, so he's done one. Or whether he's pushed, I don't know, but he's gone. The Chelsea game. The Chelsea game was, I guess, a turning point in our season. Now, there was some luck or unluckiness, if that's a word, that happened in that game, as you know, because he was there and I was there. When we had the players sent off, which was Romero, and then we had the injuries to Van der Ven and Maddison, things couldn't have got much worse against them lot. And looking back at that game now, yes, we were very brave and the rest was all that, but Jackson, did he score a hat-trick in that game?
He did.
However,
Sam, let's go. Before we even get to the controversial stuff, minute 15, ball swings across, Son sweeps it into the corner to put us 2-0 up. And it's a toenail of an offside. It's a toenail of an offside.
Right. Oh yeah,
that's right. Is the point. The season. Now, let's go into the incident then where Romero, it finishes with them getting a penalty, Romero gets sent off. First of all, Raheem Sterling dives to get a penalty. No mention of it. And if you listen to the playback, no one mentions it. Then the ball flashes about and Caicedo scores what was a brilliant shot. However, Jackson is offside as per ever, and that the goal's chalked off. Then you could hear them in the VAR room, desperate to get Romero sent off for a challenge which later in the season I saw half a dozen times and not get punished. Yeah, he clears the ball and he follows through. I mean, it was on his own international teammates, so don't get me wrong. It was quite excessive, but this is where the consistency doesn't come in. When later in the season people were doing exactly the same thing and getting away with it. You know what I mean? So, I will always feel aggrieved that night. However, the fact that we fronted up on our halfway line with 9 players.
That's what I'm laughing at.
You could see Chelsea were really struggling.
They were
really struggling. They kept getting caught offside. They were, you know,
they weren't very good that night, Chelsea. They weren't very good.
And we remember we had Eric Dyer at centre back.
I was just going to say that.
Our slowest centre back.
You know what, Sean? That was the light bulb moment for me when I saw that. When we had 9 men and we were still playing on the halfway line with Eric Dyer at centre back, I was like, this Angie's very, very brave or very, very foolish. It's somewhere in between. But I commend what he did because we could have won that game. You're right. We had opportunities.
Oh, we could have got a draw. I think winning it might have been a bit of a stretch, but we could have got a draw.
Do you know what though? There was a point when it was still 1-1. It was still 1-1, and I'm sure we had an opportunity to go 2-1 up in that game, and we didn't go. And there was a few opportunities, but then, as I said, it was Udogi's sending off which really done for us, you know. Yeah, that was it. But like I said, when you lose Van der Ven and Maddison, your 2 best players at the time, Romero had gone off, obviously very important player, and then another player in terms of Udogi. Yeah, you can look back with hindsight and say that was a game that was a bit of a, again, pragmatism came later. Maybe we could have had some pragmatism then, but again, I think what Andrew was trying to do was, and he made a good point. He's trying to instill something. So if you're trying to instill something and he's going to play that way, you're going to play like that regardless. I understood that point and I accept that point, but it was just because it was Chelsea. That's all it was for me. It was just Chelsea.
There's always going to be, you know, games against Chelsea and the games against Arsenal will always carry
West Ham as well. Don't forget to add them into it.
Yeah. Well, we've got West Ham to talk about in the coming games because, again, he rejuggled. He did the thing. He did like what we thought was madness. Put Emerson Royale and Ben Davies as centre backs, and yet we not played Villa and we did not play West Ham at home. I remember those games. We should have won both games.
And I'm going to give you the next 5 games. So obviously after that, the Chelsea loss, there was another 4 games where we didn't win. So we lost 2-1 to Wolves. Again, controversial. Lost bloody, whatever it was, Gary O'Neill. And I want to slap him. He's one of them. He's a Jamie Vardy for me. I don't like him. I respect him, but I don't like him because I knew that he was going to work something out. And he did. He got a result against us with that Wolves team in the last dying embers of that game. I don't think we deserved to win that game, but I don't think we deserved to lose it because Wolves were decent in that game. Villa. Again, Villa at home, Aston Villa, they were running high. Emery, blah, blah, blah. Talk to me about that game because I think that was a game where after the Chelsea game, then after the Wolves game, we would have thought, right, home game against Villa. This is a real test now of our credentials. We had our injury issues. We were obviously coming up to AFCON, all the rest of that, which was going to be on in January. But we didn't get the win against Villa. We lost 2-1 in that game. Do you remember that game in detail, Sean? Because I can go to the match report and tell you a bit about it if you want.
Well, I remember it. Lo Celso got a start, didn't he? And he scored. So we were 1-0 up. And I thought I thought we were in charge. You know, I thought we were the better team. I mean, Villa looked clueless, and then we gave away a free kick, a needless free kick. And how many of those did we concede in the season? You know, and they score just on half time. And as you know, as a coach, that is a painful time to concede a goal. It's a great time to score a goal.
Pau Torres from the corner, wasn't it? Was it from the corner or a free kick? It was free kick. Yeah, it was that Pau Torres goal. Oh, yeah, of course. Late in that half.
Yeah.
That we had Son had the ball in net, but was disallowed for offside. And then 7 minutes into stoppage time in the first half, Pau Torres comes up. That was and you said,
and and do you know where that injury time came from? Matty Cash's assault on Bentancur.
Yeah,
which I don't even know. Did he get a yellow card? I don't even know if he did.
I don't know what he got for that, but he should have been sent off. That was for me.
I mean, that was as bad. That was as bad as in the return fixture. McGinn's assault on Udogi.
Yeah, Yeah, there was some strange decisions this year, and we probably could have a whole show on just that. But yeah, that game there, because Villa didn't have a clue in that first half what to do, and they luckily got in at 1-1, and I think that really spurred them on. But it also made Emery think about, right, I've got to do something a little bit different here. And subsequently, in the game that we played them, the second game we played them, he tried to be too clever, but in the second half he was clever, and they were able to get the win from that. So the Villa game again, that was a game that again kind of slipped us
won,
by,
but didn't win.
Should have again. That was kind of like the mantra for a number of games in that period where we didn't win one of 5 games. So we had the Chelsea loss. We had as I talked about, we had the loss against Wolves, loss against Aston Villa, and then we had the 3-3 draw. Where nobody expected us to get anything away to City at that point. But we always I thought to myself, this team being Spurs are going to do a Spurs thing. And so they did. I think that was the Kulusevski equaliser in the dying embers of that game. That's a great game.
Great goal again from Lo Celso as well. Great goal, which is down to an interception by Ben Davies, who was playing centre back. So it's
I'm going to touch on this quickly. What happened to Lo Celso? I thought he was doing, as a cameo player, he was doing well. Then obviously, when he got the Maddison injury, I expected him to be more start. He started, I think, a couple of games, but then he didn't seem to start after that, even when Maddison was still out. Maddison was out for a long period of time. What's going on there?
Well, unfortunately, and it's kind of followed him throughout his career at Tottenham. He's vulnerable. He's vulnerable to injury. And again, the number 10 is you're going to take a lot of abuse, a lot of physical tackling. And I seem to remember there was a home game where he got kicked in this period, and I think it put him out. And again, that was again because of the lack of depth in our squad. It made it more difficult. I don't know. Did he play against West Ham in this period? I can't remember. I do remember him getting cropped sort of at the away, towards the away end in a home game. But yeah, I mean, these players seem to, we seem to get players who the physicality of the Premier League is too much for. I mean, by this time we'd lost Solomon as well. I mean, he sort of briefly appeared. I seem to remember him playing against that Burnley 5-2 game.
We had no Perisic available either after that.
Perisic had done his ACL.
He's done out for the season, so we knew that.
So, the injuries started. I mean, the injuries started to affect the players who weren't actually playing. They were getting them in training. And it was a feature of our season.
It was strange. Yeah, go on. Sorry, just finish.
No, right up through the season. Richarlison getting an injury there late in the season, and when we expected him to be starting the game, and it's something that we need to take cognizance of. But it's we had a lot of injuries this season. And you can see that in the number of times the team changed, particularly at this period. We didn't seem to pick the same 11 week in, week out. And that's...
Yeah. So after that Chelsea game, we played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We played 5 games in that period up until the West Ham game. We drew 1 and lost 4. We had 3 in a row, we had a draw. Then we lost against West Ham. The West Ham game, I'll tell you the starting lineup for that one, which is interesting. We had starting for us in that game Vicario, Pedro Porro, Romero, Davis, Udogie, Bissouma, Højbjerg, Lo Celso, Kulusevski, Son, Johnson. So Johnson started to make more appearances at that point. The subs that came on, Brian Hill. I don't know what was going on. He came on after 84 minutes. Richarlison, 67 minutes. Skip, 67 minutes. Feliz, 88. Sarr, 84. This is one of the things I just wanted to kind of touch on. I not want to go in deal because we could probably have another show about maybe doing part 2 of this season ending. The substitutions, I wasn't happy with them. I wasn't happy with some of the lateness of the substitutions when we could clearly see that there were players that were struggling at the time. I think that was also the point where Kulusevski was still playing on that right-hand side. Johnson was playing on the left-hand side. We all kind of said, not quite sure. Kulusevski kind of hit a little bit of a wall. Johnson wasn't playing that well on that side. But again, we was talking about other players. We just needed to try and obviously stem the flow of blood. In 5 games, losing 4 and only drawing 1, that's not good at any stage of the season for any team. But that's where we were. So the West Ham game was kind of like, okay, we can't see any more of this. I felt like we have to do something. The next game we played, and I'll give you the next game we played after that, we played Newcastle. We played Newcastle home. And that's when I think we kind of said, oh, there's some light at the end of this tunnel, even with the players out, even with players potentially going to AFCON. We beat them 4-1. Convincingly beat them 4-1 as well.
I mean, Son had Trippier on toast that night.
Toast.
Yeah, and Richarlison scored two great goals. So, it was. I mean, this is the thing. We weren't obviously picking up. We weren't hoovering up the points like we were in the first 10 games, but we were still picking up the points. And there were adjustments. I mean, I'm sure it's the West Ham game that Lo Celso got injured and wasn't. That's why he wasn't playing against Newcastle.
Yeah.
So it's we're still getting injuries. We're still getting. We're still having to juggle the team, and this is why I don't get that people who sort of like cast a stone saying Ange doesn't change things. He did change things. And early on, if you think about it, early in the season, say the Liverpool game, Richarlison was playing on the left wing, and Son was through the middle. By this time, they'd swapped them around, and Richarlison was about to go into this purple patch. If I recall correctly, that's kind of when he started scoring goals. So, but when there's a drop off in form and you can't pick a team week in and week out, and injuries keep piling up, it's difficult. And we didn't realise how serious Maddison's injury was going to be. It would be the new year before he came back. Van der Ven, same thing.
So in all of that, Sean, we had a pretty decent Christmas, because I'll tell you the results that we had over Christmas. Following that game against West Ham where we lost 2-1, then we had 10th of December, we beat Newcastle 4-1. 15th, we beat Forest away 2-0. The Saturday, which was the 23rd, we beat Everton 2-1. Then we had a little bit of a game against Brighton where we were 4-0 down. I think the game was 4-2 in the end. But then we won the game against Bournemouth 3-1 on New Year's Eve. So
I was at the Bournemouth game,
Yeah. So looking at that period, given the circumstances, and again, I mentioned it before, AFCON, Asia Cup coming up, the players literally were kind of playing on eggshells. And I would say they were, because I looked at Basuma at that stage, and he, to me, was a completely different player than I saw at the beginning of the season. Now, whether that was down to confidence, whether that because he got suspended for a couple of games.
He had 2 red cards by that point.
Exactly. So confident was not. He had the AFCON to look forward to. Maybe wasn't playing as well as he could have been playing. And again, all that combination of things affected his form. But we were still getting some results. Again, looking at that, we went into that, won that game. We then got into January, 14th of January. We drew with Man United 2-2 at their place. Now, I don't remember too much of that game, but I don't believe, if I remember rightly, that Man U were that great, because they haven't been great all season. But they did a job on Porro. Porro, is I think still a bit vulnerable defensively, and their both goals came down the left-hand side where Rashford had, basically was left in acres of space, and this is something Porro was doing a lot, giving his player far too much room on the left-hand side. But Richie scored a great goal from a corner, a header from a corner, and Benson, of course,
scored a great goal. You know, when he hooked up with Werner. Actually, yeah. So to make it 2-2, and it, you know, I mean, they could have won it in the last minute. I do remember. McTominay had a very, very good chance, literally on the whistle, to win it 3-2. But you know, given that it's Old Trafford and we don't really travel too well there, we haven't, you know, our record is pretty poor. I thought we did, you know, we'd done quite well, and I was more than happy with the 2-2.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, how many seasons do we come away with 4 points out of 6 from Man United?
Yeah, that was the point. And I think Man United at halftime were leading that game. If I
2-1, yeah, I think they were 2-1.
Serves me right. And I think you have to go back years and years and years and years when Man United are winning at home in a league game. How many games they've lost? I don't think they've done it too many times.
I think we broke a record. Actually, I'm sure it was a long, yeah, as you say, that if they were leading at halftime and to not actually win the game, I think it did go back a while. Yeah,
they certainly don't lose Man United when they're winning at halftime at Old Trafford. That's the record that they've got. As I said, 3-2 against Brentford. Ivan Toney back. I think he scored that free kick. Didn't he score that free kick? Was it against us or was that against somebody else?
That was his first game. Someone else. That was his first game. He scored because we presented a goal to him.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not getting mixed up.
Was it him? Yeah.
I'll tell you what.
Was it the boy out of Scott?
Was it Dylan Mbeumo?
Oh no, he plays for Bournemouth. Sorry,
who scored those goals in that game.
I think it was a present to Tony late on.
Yeah,
like a ridiculous. I think a doggy brain fart where he passed it across his own box. You know.
Yeah, we were 3-1 up in that game. Brennan Johnson, Udogie, and then Richarlison, and then it was Ivan Toney that scored to make it 3-2. But again, that game, yeah, we should be beating them, and we did. I'll just mention the next few results in February. So we had some, what would you say, up and down results. A few games in February. 2-2 against.
It's like this, yeah.
Yeah, 2-2 against them.
Like a heart monitor.
Then beat Brighton, which we got the revenge back against them at home, which was a good result. But then Gavio effing nil. He beat us 2-1 at home. He did the same sort of thing. He knew. And by this time, Sean, this is what I'm saying. By this time, when we're starting to play the teams again, I think managers have kind of thought, right, we are not going to go toe-to-toe with Tottenham. And that goes for every single team that we play. I don't think any team has, let's say teams didn't go for us toe-to-toe. Arsenal probably did. Manchester City. But even then, there were certain teams that they said, okay, we played like that in the first game. We're not going to play like that in the second game. Villa was one of them. But Gary O'Neill worked us out in both of them. He knew where to attack. The spaces were always going to be in the wide areas because of the fact that we play these inverted fullbacks and the space is going to be there. Obviously, at that point, was Van der Ven back in that game yet? I'll tell you that starting the lineup because it's very interesting to know who was that starting lineup for us. Van der Ven was back, yeah. So the starting was Vicario, Royal, Romero, Van der Ven, Davis, Bissouma, obviously back by then, Maddison, Sarr, Kulusevski, Richarlison, and Son. So we were all kind of thinking, yeah, we've got our players back now. Do you know what I mean? We're that's it, we're back. But Gary O'Neill put pay to that by showing, and I think that was a blueprint of how to play Tottenham, particularly at home against us. You can allow us to have the ball, and we were seeing upwards of 70% possession, blah, blah, blah. We were having problems having goals in the first half. I remember that clearly in that period of time. And I said, I think certain managers were very, very pragmatic against us. He was one of them, but I don't blame him. To be honest, I don't blame him. If you've got to do a job to keep that team up, which he did do, yeah. So Gary O'Neill, bastard. He did a good job.
To be fair, if Bissouma was playing, this is where the drop-off in his performances
started happening.
Really, really affected us because that role, I mean, earlier on in the season, he was doing the defensive as well as the progression part of his game really, really well. At this point, both parts of that game were lost. You know, we desperately needed a fit Bentancur or you know, I mean, I know I'm the only person in the world who would say that the number 6 position is where you try skip, but that's just me. But it's we needed someone who could cover the ground and could pass, and Basuma quite clearly at that point was done. His season had unravelled. I think his international issues were seeping into his game perhaps, and he just wasn't good. But unfortunately you couldn't rest him. You couldn't rest him because there was no I think I don't know if Bentancur was still back out injured at that point, or was he on the bench?
I think he was injured for that, but he was I think they was trying to he was coming back, but again he was the first game he come back when he got crocked at that Villa, he was actually looking like he was going to get back. And I think that Matty Cash assault set him back mentally, not just the physical aspect, but it set him back mentally. I think he was like, because I can imagine you've been off nearly a year and a bit, whatever it was, come back, you play a great game or looking like you're playing a great game, somebody assaults you, you have to go off. The mentality that it takes to kind of just shrug that off and say, oh, I'm going to get, is so hard. And I think he suffered from that for the rest of the season, if I'm honest, apart from the last few games. But if we look at March, and again, we were in with a great shout at top 4 at this point. And the reason why we were in for a great shout is because we beat Villa on the 10th of March 4-0 at their place. Smashed them. Like I said, Emery tried to be too clever, and we took advantage of that, smashed them. The
last really good performance of the season for us.
Yep.
I would say. Yeah.
The week before, we beat Crystal Palace 3-1, which I think was Roy Hodgson's one of his last games in charge.
No, exactly. It was actually Glasner's first game in charge.
Was it his Glasner? Was it? Yeah. Oh, it was his first game. Sorry, I apologise. So it was his first game, and I don't think he'd got things sorted out because we've seen what Crystal Palace have done since then. But the loss against Fulham, I think that for me, that 3-0 loss where even a draw, it would have kept you just that momentum going. We'd had 2 good victories, and then you get beaten by a London rival. And remember, we hadn't really had that great results against London rivals. I know, we had the result against Arsenal. We could say that, yes, we had the unfortunateness, again, if that's a word, against Chelsea. But that Fulham game, 3-0 to Fulham, it kind of took the wind out of us now. Really did.
Shocking. I mean, and the bizarre thing is, there was a 15-minute period when it was still 0-0, sort of like about 25 minutes to 5 minutes before half time, where Maddison, Son all had chances which they were being taking earlier in the season, and they just didn't do it. And I think, did they not score late in the first half with the guy that was in his purple patch? And we were stunned, and we were stunned again just after half time, and the game just disappeared over the horizon.
That game disappeared. But then I guess we finished March on a bit of a high, but against a team that we really should be beating. And no, it wasn't. And again, I think in the preview we even said this wasn't going to be a comfortable game. It was against Luton. We won 2-1, but we got over the line in that. And then we go into our April. And at the beginning of April, we had the West Ham game away. Now, in that game, I actually thought that we played decent. I thought we played well in that West Ham game. I really do. We just didn't get over the line again. Did we have enough in our team? I'm going to go to the team lineup just to see, from my own perspective, what we did and what we had. So Vicario, again, they were looking now at pretty much a fixed set line. Vicario, Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, Udogie, up to the point Udogie got injured, we was out for the season. But Bentancur started that game, Basuma started that game, and Maddison started that game. Those are the 3 players that I think even Andrew said he'd love to see them play together. That was, I think, effectively where we got to see that sort of, and I think they played well. I'm not quite sure whether we got the balance in terms of where we were playing that personnel, because I think Basuma's not a number 6 on his own. He was playing more in tandem with somebody who played alongside him, be it Sarr. And I think that's possibly where Aaron didn't quite get that balance right, because I don't think Bentancur had necessarily the fitness because of the long-term injury to play that role solely. And I think there was a little bit of a switch between playing a double pivot with Basuma there. And again, hindsight's great. maybe we could have done that a little bit more pragmatically, but not necessarily having to play him straight there and say him sit there. But when you play Højbjerg there, he seems to sit more in that position. Now, again, he doesn't quite have the capacity to play that role on his own, because I think you need athleticism to get across if you are going to play a lone six. But anyway, we got to see at least that three players playing in that sense, but we didn't get the victory against West Ham. But and then I think our season was just up and down after that. Again, we were flirting with top four. That's what I would say. We were flirting with top four because Villa were in and around us at that point. So our April 1-1 on the 2nd of April. Then we beat Forest 3-1. I'm thinking, yep, this is it. We can make this. Then what happens? Do you remember the game next after that? A certain St. James's Park.
Shocking.
I don't even have to look at the match report because
I mean, the worst. I mean, from the sublime to ridiculous. I mean, Villa, whatever, a few weeks beforehand, best performance. I would probably say the Newcastle thing was the worst because they had a whole team's worth of injuries as well. You know, they had so many players not available for them, and they just did a job on us. They really did a job on us, and you know, just goes to show that I don't think we were brave enough. I don't think we were quick enough. We were just second in all aspects of football in that day, and it was. I mean, it was just dreadful.
Think of the manager that we played against, Eddie Howe. And now again, with Eddie Howe, I like him as a manager. I like him more than I like Gary O'Neill. I don't have that negativity against Eddie Howe as I do Gary O'Neill. It's just his face. I think that's what it is with Gary. Sorry, Gary, if you're watching. I know you're probably not, but I'm sorry. But it is your face. I don't like it. Eddie Howe, again, did what he had to do. He's got assets that allow him to play the game that exactly does what it says on the tin against Spurs. Play in them wide areas. Let them have the ball. Use your pace. Gordon, Isak, speed merchants. They had so much space. The goals that we conceded against them were classic counter-attacking goals. And also the fact that we also conceded from set piece, which was, again, going around that time. Spurs can't defend set pieces. Spurs can't defend corners. Vicario is under pressure. And everybody was kind of looking at these things. As I said, you build up a portfolio of what you see, and that's what we were getting. People were targeting us.
I was watching this game in the Turks and Caicos, right? And it started, and a friend of my cousin's had walked in, a Spurs fan from out there, and I think he'd hardly settled his arse on the couch when it was 2-0. Because remember, they scored 90 seconds after the first goal. When Porro did that, I don't know what he was thinking. It was a back pass, but a back pass to nobody, and you know it was like, and I remember my cousin turned around and said, "Tim, you better fuck off because this is on you." I mean, we were the architects. We helped them.
As I was going to say we were the architects of our own downfall in that game. I just think we allowed them to. Yeah, I know it was at St. James's Park, but again, you were right in what you said. I'm sure they had a 17-year-old playing in that game starting. We can't make the excuse for injuries because they had a lot of injuries, blah, 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 blah. But again, it was one of the alongside the Chelsea game, alongside a couple other games, this was the game that showed me, right, okay, if we are going to play this brand of football, we can't have a drop-off too far down between those that start and those that come on. The drop-off between someone like, I guess, Van der Ven down to somebody like, at the time, Dragusin was probably not playing that great, confidence, blah, 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 whatever.
Well, I mean, to be fair, we'd seen Dragusin against Fulham, and I thought it was dreadful.
It was dreadful. You know what I mean? But I gave him a little bit of benefit because he was playing on that left-hand side. Maybe that wasn't, and he got exposed. We got exposed in that game against him, and he got exposed. So I think there are lessons to be learned from players. If we are going to continue playing that way, we can't have such a massive drop off, or we have to be very lucky that these players don't get injured or suspended for a long periods of time, which football doesn't usually work like that. But again, April 1-1 against West Ham. We beat Forest 3-0, lost that game 4-0, and then the 28th of April, Arsenal. And I think that's where I did a complete, that's it now. Because when you're 3-0 down against them lot at home, it's not good. It's not
especially
good.
in 29 minutes.
It's not good. And we were all there. And I looked around at people, and then I know fans went. I didn't go. I was staying because I thought, right, I've seen us come back. I've seen us do that. Didn't think we were going to come back and win because I always thought Arsenal would score again. But 3-0 at half time, I would even say that they were probably disappointed in their performance. They're obviously grateful for the victory, but I wouldn't say that they were happy with their performance as an Arsenal fan. And we, again, could have got a draw out of that game. I remember we could have gone for a draw.
Well, remember, again, VAR, Van der Ven's equaliser, the blatant trip on Kulusevski in the lead up to Saka's second goal. The second goal,
which was a penalty. It was a penalty, was it not?
Yeah, it was a penalty. Absolute penalty.
It was a penalty. At the end of the day, that was a penalty. He didn't go down, but I was still. That's what VAR's supposed to do.
But yeah, it was. You just knew that. I think that was the point at which I said, we'll just have to accept that this is not a Champions League squad yet. We're a good squad when we play at the best of our thing, but I think it's we were kind of running on empty from there on, really, and it was shown in the results that were to come after that.
And that was it, because I think that really, the top four push that we had at that point, the wind was completely taken out of ourselves following the next two games that we had. One against, again, another one of our rivals that we don't want to lose against. But history suggests that we don't really win too many games at Stamford Bridge, regardless of where they're at, where we're at. We lost 2-0 in that game. And then the game against Liverpool, again, another game where we were completely battered in that first half, smashed to pieces in that first half. Were they 4-0 up in that game?
They were 4-0 up after 60 minutes, yeah. However, again, first 15 minutes we held our own, and then it just caved in. And from there, from like 30 minutes to 15 minutes into the second half, they were lethal. They were just brutal. And, they just took advantage of our mistakes. I mean, was that the skip at left back trial?
Yeah, that was a trial. That was a skip trial. I'm sure that was a skip trial.
But that's because he
said that because he was up against Salah. We said, oh, did he?
Oh, no.
Emerson Royal played left back.
Yeah, and actually, Skip came on late on and actually did a reasonable job. He was clearly that, but because he could do the inverted stuff, he actually helped them out. I'm sure he was instrumental in the build up to one of the goals. Yeah. So, but
he did all right in that game because Emerson Royal was absolutely.
And then it was like there was a clamour for him to start the next game, and that was
that didn't work out too well. Although we got the victory against Burnley, but the Emerson Royal left back against Mo Salah, I think everybody, to a man, woman, child, he, him, her, they, whatever you want to call yourself, knew that was going to be a problem. That was going to be a problem. Emerson Royal up against Salah, and it proved to be the case. 4-0 down, you're not going to win that game, particularly at Anfield. However, we made a good fist of it. We made a good fist of it. We did make a good fist of it. Then we had a 2-1, which we should have beaten Burnley. And even then, this is where the turmoil came in, because Aston Villa weren't doing too great, but I thought the top four was out of it. But then we obviously had the Man City game, which, looking back, was one of the weirdest events as a Spurs fan that I think I can remember in recent times. I watched that game on TV. I didn't go to it. I said I couldn't go to it. And the reason I didn't want to go to it is because I couldn't sit there and not celebrate Spurs scoring, but then I couldn't go there and celebrate Man City scoring. So I was just going to be neutral. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to support my team, but I'm going to support my team in silence. That's what I tried to do. And then when Son went through, almost when Son went through,
I thought this would be so Spurs.
This is Spurs in a nutshell for the whole season. We cannot let. I thought it was guaranteed. I don't know what you thought because you was at the game. Was you at the game, right?
No.
Oh, you didn't go. You didn't
go.
Yeah.
As soon as they moved it to midweek, it just became.
Yeah. Of course, you said it. You didn't want to get down there because you couldn't get down there in midweek. But yeah, as soon as you see Son go through 1v1 with anybody in that amount of space, you're thinking 9 times out of 10. I'm just glad it was that 1 time out of 10. But I'm convinced that he aimed at his legs.
99 times out of 100, I'd say. That's in the back of the net. Especially against City. I mean, his record against City is unbelievable.
Yeah. So
I mean, he scored the first goal at their place in the corresponding fixture. But
yeah,
I mean, it was it was a horrible night to be a Spurs fan because
that's one of the only games I can say that I don't mind losing.
Well, I don't. Well, no.
No, I'll rephrase that. Take that back. I'll take that back. That's the wrong phrase. I would say that I wasn't after that game and knowing that what's happened since. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because obviously them lot didn't win the league. Now, had Son scored that goal, there's no statue of Son going up. But I think after that game, we might see a Son statue.
Yeah, but it'll be down at the Emirates if he'd scored. Yeah. Oh my God, nice.
Dear me.
Situation. It caused eruptions on and off the field.
Exactly.
I mean,
we know what happened. The fallout from that game was a bit much. It was a bit much.
But I think it was squashed by the Friday.
I think it was squashed because Ange did well. He didn't take things back, but what he did was he reframed it. He reframed things a lot better. So he said, yeah, it's my responsibility. He starts, if you want to blame anyone, put up a stick, it's me, blah, blah, blah. As opposed to blaming the fans, because that's where I think he would have gone down a wrong path had he continued that same rhetoric.
I mean, that is Conte territory. Remember, people still forget that Conte's first target was the fans. He said we were not patient enough.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, what, and I just thought, get out of my effing club, you. That's when he turned into the sort of the Shirin troll for me. If you're going to tell me how to support my football club I've been going to since 1968, you baldy bastard, then I'm get out of my club, and take those charlatans with you. Anyway, we know what happened there.
Let's not go back to that because let's
not review last season as well as this season.
That's the Lini episode that we had. That was one of the craziest things I could ever think Spurs would do. Why would you? Anyway, let's not. It's a
money-saving gesture, I think.
Yeah, but again, I did think that Andrew was going down the wrong route. Had he continued that route, but I think he had somebody. Whether it was him with his hindsight, whether it was him just reflecting, whether it was people around him, I think he realized, right, this isn't going to go down well with us. Because there was so many podcasts that I'd seen. There was quite a lot of vitriol against him. There was a lot of people saying things that, now, is he the right man? Does he understand about Spurs? Does he understand about, the Arsenal thing, the rivalry between us, Arsenal, Chelsea, West Ham? Does he understand about that? I think he does, because obviously he's got the history from Celtic and Rangers. And he made the point. He's a winner. He doesn't want to see his team lose. But if there's one game where, again, as a fan, you could say, okay, it was that game. It was a City game. City game. So if you've got your people on the inside, and this is the coaches, possibly Ryan Mason, possibly other people in there, maybe not saying out loud, we want to lose this game, because I don't think anybody would have said that. But they would have known what the consequences are of us winning that game would have been for Arsenal. So again, hindsight, let's not do that because we did that to death anyway. The last game of the season, 3-0 against Sheffield United, already demoted, relegated. Again, it could have been a bit of a banana skin because last day away from home, sometimes Spurs don't do that great. Newcastle, St. James's Park springs to mind when we bought Sissoko off the back of that. Yeah,
again, there was like shade being thrown at the coach because, look, we told you about Mickey van der Ven at left back. And they said, and what I'd say to this, listen to his answer as to why he didn't pick Van der Ven at left back in previous games. He said, I know his injury record. I know that the playing left back for my team is different from playing for left centre back. Do I want to put too much strain on that boy's hamstrings, bearing in mind he's just recovered from one injury? He wants to go to the Euros with the Netherlands. You know, it's a totally different. And it's if you like, we can loop this back to the opening day of the season. This is quite a nice sort of, you know, tie up the ends. When he saw that Romero was dazed after scoring the first goal, he showed due care and attention to an employee, if you like, and he hooked him. Now, most people would have said, "Oh no, just it's Romero. He's indestructible." But no, Ange knows. They know a lot more than we do, and sometimes we think, he talked about it throughout the season. Players have got issues going on in their lives. Players have got injuries that they're carrying. You know, Sam, at the end of a Premier League season, some of those players are carrying knocks. But they're, if they're in with a chance of the title, or they're in the chance of a cup, or if they're trying to avoid relegation, they'll put themselves through it. And I think Ange acted responsibly. Obviously, I mean, he played him at left back in that last game against Sheffield United, but he rose to the task. But it was, you could see there was what was it when he first tried? It was against City, wasn't it? And Ali Gold said after 28 minutes he was blown out of his backside because it's a totally different position. And at one point he said to the player, "Don't pass to me." So it's a different thing. And I think people have an agenda, that he's inflexible.
Yeah. He's not inflexible. I agree with you. He's not inflexible.
It's just that he doesn't. He's not going to go from attacking football to a low block. But he's not going to do that. So leave that out. It's never going to happen. And I commend it because I don't want to see that.
Yeah. What Ange isn't is he's not a knee-jerk manager who responds to the whims of fans in the media. That's what he's not. And I respect that. Sometimes you can listen to what the fans and the media say and make your decision from it based on what you know, because we don't know what goes on every single day. We don't. And I'll tell you this, the majority of players who play in the Premier League at that high level, not one of them is 100% fit throughout the season. A lot of players play through painkilling injections, blah, 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 whatever it is, to enable them to play because they know, particularly if you're going for success in terms of trophies. I heard about Kevin De Bruyne last season playing through painkiller injections for that because he knew that he had to. They had to get him right. And that's not an isolated incident. We all know, and this goes back a lot.
I mean, the players that I grew up, my heroes when I was 20, in my teens and 20s, a lot of those players are playing, have now got life-changing injuries that they carry because they were forced with cortisone injections or whatever, which fucked up their system. How many players are, fallen on hard times? That's why they have the Tottenham Tribute Trust to help these players who've, fallen on hard times and are facing medical bills. And that's not just any old player. That's players like Steve Perryman, who's like Mr. Tottenham. Most of former club captain. Still, the players that played with him, if they're asked to do something, they'll say it has to go through the skipper. Yeah.
Luckily for a lot of the players that we're now watching, all of the players, I should say, are playing in the Premier League. The ones that were playing in the Football League, you know, some of them were playing through some. They didn't have the sports science that they have now. Ledley King. We again, for people who want to know about Ledley King, just go and have a read about what he used to do to be able to get him out to play for us on a regular basis. Guy couldn't train most of the time. The guy was having injection after injection, literally, because he wanted to come and, you know, play for his boyhood club. That's the sort of level of commitment that you have to have as a player professionally, because you can't just turn out, oh, you know what, boss, my knee's hurting today. That doesn't work at professional level sport, because it's mentality. It's more about mentality. Yes, the consequences could be quite disastrous afterwards for you. But if you ask most top sportsmen, would they take back anything that they've done in their career to be able to not, you know, have a knee replacement or hip, whatever it is? They'll tell you I'll do exactly the same thing again.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, Steve Perryman would say the same. You know, he doesn't regret it, but obviously his long-term health has been affected. But
this is where the clubs have to look after the players now as well.
That's they have a duty of care for the players, definitely.
So I'm going to just wrap this up. This is the old school report. I'm going to give Ange, and this is a good mark, because I'm going from A+ downwards. You can give him a D. I'm not giving him a D. I'm going to give him a B+. And the reason I'm going to give him a B+, it started off as an A, first 10 games. But then we had a bit of a dodgy patch. But then he's kind of said things. He's shown us glimpses. And again, if we have a decent transfer window, that could improve tremendously for next season. But off the back of this season being fifth, would I have taken fifth at the start? 100%. Would I have taken fifth after 10 games? No, I wouldn't have. But that, again, hindsight's great. B+ for me. That's my school mark. Mr. Hell, what's your mark for Ange? Siren saying Ange gets a B-, maybe C+ for me. Ooh.
No, I think bearing in mind, you know, the stats that we did earlier, I did earlier with more goals, more points, and higher in the league. That to them. But I want to leave you with this with you. It's right. I'm just going to read out some stats. Just one stat per team. So Aston Villa 61, Tottenham Hotspur 61, Chelsea 63, Newcastle 62, Manchester United 58, West Ham 74, Crystal Palace 58, Brighton 62, Bournemouth 67, Fulham 61, Wolves 65, Everton 51, Brentford 65, Nottingham Forest 67, Luton 85, Burnley 78, and Sheffield United 104. So that's every team from fifth down conceded a shed load of goals. The only team that emerges with any sort of credit in that is Everton, and that just goes to show what a crazy season this has been.
Well, the highest scoring season of the Premier League.
I mean, history. And it's and there have been significant changes. Games are lasting longer. Yeah. I mean, look how many winners did we score in 90+ minutes this year? Yeah. Quite a lot.
I see a few games this season where it's been 10 minutes on the clock, as it's what?
Yeah. So you're playing for 100 minutes, maybe 115 minutes, which you hadn't been doing before.
Agreed.
Where, time wasting was worked. It was checked on. It was squeezed, and although they didn't issue maybe the yellow cards that they should have done, they did actually add the time on. So players are playing longer. That makes decisions about substitutes difficult. In answer to your position, in answer to your thing you said about Ange and his substitutes, because normally up here in Scotland he was like 60 minutes, 75 minutes. That's when the subs were made, irrespective. But you weren't getting 100, 115-minute games, and we've played more minutes, and
so I agree with that point.
It's a difficult one to judge.
It is. And this is what I would say then to that point. So I think there needs to be some strategy built around that. And you're right. if a game's going to last 100 minutes, bringing someone on after at 85 minutes doesn't seem too bad. 80 minutes in fact, because you still got 20 minutes of a game potentially to go. So I can understand that. But sometimes you might have to take risks earlier to win that game so you can at least see a game out. And that's why I think that balance hasn't quite been right for me. When I think we could have actually put players on earlier to maybe change the game, to maybe get back into it. But again, that comes with experience. That comes with also knowing some of the players. And again, we don't know what the attitude and the mindset of some of these players are. This is what the manager's there to find out. And I think he's now got a good idea of who he can trust. Maybe the players that he doesn't trust as much, maybe the players that he needs to get out, etc., etc. So that's why it's going to be a long summer for me, a long summer for Spurs, and probably a long summer for you. And I hope it's a sunny summer. I do hope it's a sunny summer.
Well, it's absolutely bucketing down out here, so it's throwing it down.
It's been raining. It's been raining here.
Yeah.
So I want to say, go on, Sean.
But I mean, if I'm going to mark it, probably I'm with Ziran, the tester. It's probably, I would say, probably a B minus. But you know,
that's harsh for you, isn't it?
Yeah, but the reason it's a B minus is because that run of games towards the end was quite hard to take. I would have been a B, but I would have been a B,
right?
Because we've improved in many of the metrics, but I'm all Anjin, and I'm still Anjin, and I will be Anjin.
So look at
what may happen through this summer.
So let's look at let's look at the 4 teams, but look at 3 teams particularly who are above us this season. Man City, always going to be above us. Arsenal, I think we're always going to be above us this season. And obviously Liverpool. And again, Klopp's last season, we didn't know that at the time. But again, you would have thought that Liverpool would be above us based on what they've done in the past 5, 6, 7 years. Aston Villa was probably the bit of an anomaly that, we should have been challenging them. But Chelsea had a fall off. Manchester United had a fall off. There was teams that didn't even feature, which we thought Newcastle. Everybody saw on Newcastle. They should be challenging.
Man United goal difference -1.
Terrible. So had you said to me at the start of the season, and I think we'd all have looked at this, possibly challenging for top 4 but finishing 5th, that's why I've given him the B+. If I'm going to look at isolation in the mid part of the season and the end part, then it's probably going to be a lower mark. But I will give him that credit for that early part, and I'll also give him the credit for when he had to make them decisions to change things. None of us could have sat here and said, Emerson Royal at centre back and Ben Davies at centre back is going to do anything for us. But he got a point at the Etihad. Well, we had to live with that. So those are the things that if we can get that sorted out for next season, where we don't have such extremities to have to cope with on a long period, a long basis, then we're in better stead. And again, knowing what we know now, no Liverpool manager, Pep might be off, Arsenal will be Arsenal, Man United, we're going to be up, Chelsea are going to be whatever they're going to do. So there's opportunities. So B+ for me. Anybody else want to put their mark? You can put it in the comment section after this show. I want to say hello and thank you for watching to Zyra and the test of David Clark solo. Ain't seen you a while on the Man United agenda. Old friend there. Dino Dinosaur, as always. I don't want to say that name, but I'm going to say it anyway. Dickie. Old school name. David Clark, thank you again for watching the show. It's been a pleasure, and thanks to all those still watching up until now. We've had quite a few. I'm going to promote my main man again, my main man, Banton Money Bags. Check him out, Instagram. Got a load of clothing out there. That's what I'm doing these days, I'm promoting. Not going to promote.
Oh, you're such a good model.
What can I say? What can I say?
You don't want wobbly boys like me, you know.
No. It's all right.
Anyway, so thanks for everyone who's contributed through this season.
Fabulous.
We're not going away. We've managed to get through this discussion on the season without talking about the 2 deals that were confirmed today.
No, that's another show, Sean. When I saw that up there, I'm like, no, I'm not touching that subject tonight. It's too much.
Brandon Austin, 5-year deal. Wow.
We got to touch on. Timo Werner might need his own show. Timo, you might need your own show, fam. I got a lot to say about that. A lot to say, but not tonight. Tonight is not the night. I'm going to say thank you to my friend, Mr. Tifasi, Sean Hurl. Brilliant season. We'll have another talking points again soon. I'm sure Sid will come up with some transfer, but again, it's until they hold the shirt up. It's just gossip. You know what I mean? We don't want to deal with gossip, but there's been officially Timo Werner. Apparently, please tell me someone's joking about that.
It's on the socials. A 1 year loan with an option to buy.
What? Buy? No.
An option to buy.
No. I don't want to see no options. The option should be we'll have him on loan for 3 months. The option should be we'll have him on loan, and if he doesn't score in his first 10 games, we send him back. That should be the option. That's the only option we should have. But it's not going to be possible. I don't want to talk about that. I'm not talking about that now. People, if you're with me, you know what I'm on about with this Timo Werner business. No, I'm not having it. Anyway, that's for another day. Sean, thank you very much.
Of Timo Werner.
It's going to haunt me for real. I'm trying to find the music to get out the show with. What's that one? Do I like that intro? I'm going to go with the old school outro, because I like it. It's the intro, but the outro, if that makes sense. Anyway, like, subscribe, comment. Make sure you put
and share the stream.
Share the stream. Put your comments in there. Tell us what you think Ange deserves for this season in terms of his managerial, and also what the team deserves. It might be two different marks there. Might be. Depends on what you do. Or can slump it all together.
Yeah, the manager was let down by his players.
And there is some degree of that. I agree. And furthermore, Timo is a sexy man. Come on, Angelo. Come on. We're not doing this. And it's Europa League, baby. Well, he did get us Europa League. And there's certain other teams that got Conference League. We're not mentioning them names.
And a qualifying round as well.
And a qualifying two-legged round to get through as well. With no manager. Oh, God. Thank goodness. Thank you for confirming and just, clarifying that, because, Angelo, I'd have had to have words. But he's only taking a piss. You know the score. We're doing that.
All right, Angelo, I'm gonna back the decision. Don't worry. When we talk about it, I'm gonna talk on it.
Uncomfortable Conversations Part 5, the Timo Werner saga. We have to have that. That's what it's gonna be titled. It's got to be titled that. The Timo Werner saga. Because it's a saga. Thank you. That's it. Thank you to all those who have appeared on the show this season. Obviously, thank you to Sid, Darius, Jodi, Pav, MisterK, all the rest of them in our group, Mike, Pipes, Calvin, Marlon, all the rest of you people that watch us. Thank you.
And a big up to
Laura.
A big up to Jodi.
Jodi
on her new arrival. Yeah,
Theodore.
Lovely.
She's made him a Spurs fan. She's made him a Spurs fan.
I think that's still up for debate.
His dad's definitely up for that debate because he's a Liverpool
I'm sure
fan.
he's a Liverpool fan.
Surely have that debate. If it was Arsenal, there's no debate. But Liverpool, I'd have something to say as well. What's this one saying? We'll have an Uncomfortable Conversations Part 5, Angelo. Make sure you tune into that one because those two players might come up. Not so much Brendan, but certainly Sizzling Timo. He's definitely coming up for debate. I don't care. Right, that's it. Enough talking, and we are out. See you soon. Probably next week, I would imagine we'll do another show because it's not much to talk about other than gossip.
And the window's not open until the 14th of June.
So we may as well speculate until then. Thank you, people. Thank you for watching Pax and Red TV. I'm Sam Spurs for Life. We out.
It's just different.